Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. First timers, welcome to the Bible Hour. Come on in, open up the Bible. Welcome, North Star. Good evening, Phil Tamlin. Good evening, Samantha Whittington with her own account. Well. Is Neil even there? We are in Numbers chapter 32. We are full steam ahead to Deuteronomy. Here's a quiz question as people dig out their Bibles. Kerry, welcome. Who sings this? The book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the laws of the jungle and the sea are your only teachers. Hey, North Star. Question there from the Park End admin team for you, North Star. Hey, Diane in the house. Petit Bois. Good evening. It's like a little gang we've started here, isn't it? Can't possibly watch that thing on TV. I've got to meet my gang. Numbers chapter 32, starting in 4 minutes. I give the quiz question again because the entire group seemed to ignore it. Who sings this? The book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the laws of the jungle and the sea are your only teachers. Sam's Googling. Hey, yes, Sue Roberts, and yes, Phil Townley, Bob Dylan, and Park End admin, Bob Dylan, yeah. Was there a bit of Googling going on there in that 2-minute gap? We are in Numbers chapter 32. Welcome on in. Jonty's well, good. His knee is better. He even says, Jesus healed me. Bob Dylan. Jesus healed me. End of sentence. New sentence. Bob Dylan. Yeah, you're learning. We're getting to know each other, Park End admin. Thank you, Kerry. Kerry and Phil Tamlin, by the way, they are legends in the Christian world. They do a lot with special needs people. I think you can still use the word special needs or something challenged. If you've got an interest in special needs ministries, go to Phil and Kerry Tamlin. Equally, Sam Whittington works for Safe Families for Children, so there could be some crossover here. They are a change ensuing to COVID times. In 1 minute, we will be starting Deuteronomy chapter 32. Sam is due to give a talk on safe families for children in our church. Perhaps Phil and Kerry would like to come along to that. Perhaps Phil and Kerry will give a talk about their work with special needs people. Chris Henry's here. Well, so me and Chris Henry have been talking about lighting today. And ironically, after the email exchanged, my son ran into the lamp which lights up this session and smashed it. So now we have a brand new lamp shining on me and on the display board. It is Numbers chapter 32, and we are heading on to Deuteronomy today. Okay. I also turned white balance off, which might be auto white balance, which might be why I'm not changing colors. Welcome on to the Bible Hour. It is day 22. What do we learn about Jesus? What do we learn about church? Don't let that put you off and think it's just an academic question and we all leave slightly more educated. We want to learn things which change our hearts about the living God and church. This was there blood on the moon. I don't know. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Numbers chapter 32. This gets interesting. Remember those girls we were talking about yesterday? The Milky Bar Kid. The tribes east of the Jordan. The tribes of Reuben and Gad owned vast numbers of livestock. So when they saw that the lands of Jazer and Gilead were ideally suited for their flocks and herds, they came to Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the other leaders of the community. They said, by the way, remember we're still in it, church inheriting the world, getting their slice of the new heavens and earth, the promised land in this instance. They said, notice the towns of Ataroth, Dibon, Jezu, Nimrah, Heshbon, Ele, Sibma, Nebo, and Beon. The Lord has conquered this whole area for the community of Israel, and it is ideally suited for all of our livestock. If we have found favor with you, please let us have this land as our property instead of giving us land across the Jordan River. Do you intend to stay here while your brothers go across and do all the fighting? Moses asked the men of Gad and Reuben, why do you want to discourage the rest of the people of Israel from going across the land the Lord has given them? Your ancestors did the same thing when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. After they went up to the valley of Eshcol and explored the land, they discouraged the people of Israel from entering the land the Lord was giving them. Just anybody just dropping in now, a couple of tribes are saying, we won't go in all the way to the land. Can we have this bit here? And Moses is like, are you trying to back out of inheriting the land? Then the Lord was very angry with them, and he vowed, of all those I rescued from Egypt, no one who is 20 years old or older will see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for they have not obeyed me wholeheartedly. The only exceptions are Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they have wholeheartedly followed the Lord. The Lord was angry with Israel and made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years until the entire generation that sinned in the Lord's sight had died. But here you are, a brood of sinners doing exactly the same thing. You are making the Lord even angrier with Israel. If you turn away from him like this and he abandons them again in the wilderness, you will be responsible for destroying this entire nation." But they approached Moses and said, "We simply want to build pens for our livestock and fortified towns for our wives and children. Then we will arm ourselves and lead our fellow Israelites into battle until we have brought them safely into the land. Meanwhile, our families will stay in the fortified towns we build here, so they will be safe from any attacks by the local people. We will not return to our homes until all the people of Israel have received their portions of land. But we do not claim any of the land on the other side of the Jordan. We would rather live here on the east side and accept this as our grant of land." I think some Bibles call this in subheadings the Transjordan area or something like that. Then Moses said, "If you keep your word and arm yourselves for the Lord's battles, and if your troops cross the Jordan and keep fighting until the Lord has driven out the enemies, then you may return when the Lord has conquered the land. You will have fulfilled your duty to the Lord and to the rest of the people of Israel, and the land on the east side of the Jordan will be your property from the Lord. But if you fail to keep your word, then you will have sinned against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will find you out." Classic verse. "Go ahead and build towns for your families and pens for your flocks, but do everything you have promised." Then the men of Gad, Reuben replied, "We, your servants, will follow your instructions exactly. Our children, wives, flocks, and cattle will stay here in the towns of Gilead. But all who are able to bear arms will cross over to fight for the Lord, just as you have said." So Moses gave orders to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the leaders of the clans of Israel. He said, "The men of Gad and Reuben who are armed for battle must cross the Jordan with you to fight for the Lord. If they do, give them the land of Gilead as their property when the land is conquered. But if they refuse to arm themselves and cross over with you, then they must accept the land with the rest of you in the land of Canaan." The tribes of Gad and Reuben said again, "We are your servants, and we will do as the Lord has commanded. We will cross the Jordan into Canaan fully armed to fight for the Lord, but our property will be here on this side of the Jordan." So Moses assigned the land to the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph. He gave them the territory of King Sihon of the Amorites and the land of King Og of Bashan, the whole land with its cities and surrounding lands. The descendants of Gad built the towns of Dibon, Ataroth, Arurah, Aroth Shofan, Jazer, Jogbehah, Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran. These are all fortified towns with pens for their flocks. The descendants of Reuben built the towns of Heshbon, Elealeh, Kiriathaim, Nebo, Balmeon, and Sibmah. They changed the names of the towns they conquered and rebuilt. Then the descendants of Machir of the tribe of Manasseh went to Gilead and conquered it, and they drove out the Amorites living there. So Moses gave Gilead to the Machirites, descendants of Manasseh, and they settled there. The people of Jair, another clan of the tribe of Manasseh, captured many of the towns in Gilead and changed the name of that region of the towns of Jair. Meanwhile, a man named Noba captured the town of Kenath and its surrounding villages, and he renamed the area Noba after himself. Numbers chapter 33. If you missed that, by the way, in 32, the whole Transjordan movement was triggered then by the descendants of Machir. And we read yesterday that they are the daughters of Zelophehad. Once they go, everybody else is like, oh, I'm off to conquer my bit too. They are the original girl power. Numbers 33, remembering Israel's journey. This is the route the Israelites followed as they marched out of Egypt under the leadership of Moses and Aaron. At the Lord's direction, Moses kept a written record of their progress. These are the stages of their march, identified by the different places where they stopped along the way. This is quite a spiritually minded diary, and I reckon all diaries probably should be, just looking at the Lord's works in our lives. They set out from the city of Ramesses in early spring on the 15th day of the first month, on the morning after the first Passover celebration. The people of Israel left defiantly, in full view of the Egyptians. Meanwhile, the Egyptians were burying all their firstborn sons whom the Lord had killed the night before. The Lord had defeated the gods of Egypt that night with great acts of judgment. After leaving Ramesses, the Israelites set up camp at Succoth. Then they left Succoth and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. Then they left Etham and turned back towards Pi-Hahiroth, opposite Baal-Zephon, and camped near Migdol. They left Pi-Hahiroth, and crossed the Red Sea into the wilderness beyond. Then they traveled for 3 days into the Etham wilderness and camped at Marah. They left Marah and camped at Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees. They left Elim and camped beside the Red Sea. They left the Red Sea and camped beside the wilderness of Sin. They left the wilderness of Sin and camped in Dophkah. They left Dophkah and camped in Alush. They left Alush and camped in Rephidim, where there was no water for the people to drink. They left Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai. They left the wilderness of Sinai and camped in Kibroth Hattaavah. They left Kibroth Hattaavah and camped at Hazeroth. They left Hazeroth and camped at Rithmah. They left Rithmah and camped in Rimmon Perez. They left Rimmon Perez and camped in Libnah. They left Libnah and camped in Rissa. They left in Rissa and camped in Kathalath. They left Kathalath and camped in Mount Shephar. They left Mount Shephar and camped in Harada. They left Harada and camped in Machheloth. They left Machheloth and camped in Tathah. They left Tahath and camped in Terah. They left Terah and camped in Mithka. They left Mithka and camped in Hashmona. They left in Hashmona and camped in Mosoroth. They left Mosoroth and camped in Beni Jacan. They left Beni Jacan and camped in Hor-Haggidgad. They left Hor-Haggidgad and camped in Jotbathah. They left Jotbathah and camped in Abrona. Camped in Abrona and camped in Ezion-Gibber. They camped in Ezion-Gibber and camped at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. Look back in your diaries later if you kept them and trace the Lord's hand and kindness in it. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hitherto the Lord hath helped. They kept Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor at the border of Edom. Where did they camp? When they were at the foot of Mount Hor, Aaron the priest was directed by the Lord to go up to the mountain, and there he died. This happened in midsummer on the first day of the 5th month of the 40th year after Israel's departure from Egypt. Aaron was 123 years old when he died there on Mount Hor. At the time, the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev in the land of Canaan, heard that the people of Israel were approaching his land. Meanwhile, the Israelites left Mount Hor and camped in Zalmonah. They left Zalmonah and camped in Punon. They left Punon and camped in Oboth. They left Oboth and camped in Ai Abarim on the border of Moab. They left Ai Abarim and camped at Dibon Gad. They left Dibon Gad and camped at Alman Diblathim. They left Alman Diblathim and camped in the mountains of the east of the river, near Mount Nebo. They left the mountains east of the river and camped in the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. Along the Jordan River, they camped from Beth Jeshimoth, as far as the meadows of Acacia on the plains of Moab. While they were camped near the Jordan River on the plains of Moab opposite Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you cross the Jordan River into the land of Canaan, you must drive out all the people living there. You must destroy all their carved and molten images and demolish their pagan shrines. Take possession of the land and settle in it, because I have given it to you to occupy. You must distribute the land among the clans by sacred lot and in proportion to their size." I preached tonight on Psalm 25, Part B, all about the land. Exciting stuff for the church, that land. A large portion of land will be allotted to each of the larger clans, and a smaller portion will be allotted to each of the smaller clans. The decision of the sacred lot is final. In this way, the portions of land will be divided among your ancestral tribes. But if you fail to drive out the people who live in the land, I'll say this again, especially for parts of Samuel, but if you fail to drive out the people who live in the land, those who remain will be like splinters in your eyes and thorns in your sides. They will harass you in the land where you live, and I will do to you what I had planned to do to them. Who's thinking of the Samaritans? Numbers chapter 34. Boundaries of Israel, the land. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give these instructions to the Israelites. When you come into the land of Canaan, when I am giving you as your special possession, as your special possession, these will be the boundaries." Now remember, this is heaven on earth. So we should be getting excited about boundaries. What is in the heavens on earth? The southern portion of your country will extend from the wilderness of Zin along the edge of Edom. The southern boundary will begin on the east at the Dead Sea. It will run south past Scorpion Pass in the direction of Zin. Its southernmost point will be Kadesh Barnea, from which it will go to Hazar Adar on the Azmon. From the Azmon, the boundary will turn toward the Brook of Egypt and end at the Mediterranean Sea. Your western boundary will be the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. Your northern boundary will begin at the Mediterranean Sea and run east to Mount Hor, then to Lebo Hamath, and on through Zedad and Ziphrom to Hazar-Irnan. This will be your northern boundary. The eastern boundary will start at Hazarnan and run south to Shepham, then down to Riblah on the east side of Ain. From there, the boundary will run down along the eastern edge of the Sea of Galilee, and then along the Jordan River to the Dead Sea. These are the boundaries of your land. And, when the Lord rebuilds heaven and the earth, and he said, basically, he's allocating it all to the church, we're going to reign with him. It's pretty mind-blowing that there will be a geographical portion in the perfect world to come that we're there with church family. It's quite moving, I think. Then Moses told the Israelites, "This territory is the homeland you are to divide among yourselves by sacred lot. The Lord has commanded that the land be divided among the 9.5 remaining tribes. The families of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh have already received their grants of land on the east side of the Jordan River, across from Jericho toward the sunrise. Leaders to divide the land." And the Lord said to Moses, "Eleazar the priest and Joshua, son of Nun, are the men designated to divide the grants of land among the people. Enlist one leader from each tribe to help them with the task. These are the tribes and names of the leaders. Tribe, Judah. Leader, Caleb, son of Jephunneh. Simeon. Shemuel, son of Ammihud. Tribe, Benjamin. Elidad, son of Kislon. Tribe, Dan. Buki, son of Jogli. Tribe, Manasseh, son of Joseph. Heniel, son of Ephod. Tribe, Ephraim, son of Joseph. Kemuel, son of Shiftan. Tribe, Zebulun. Elizvan, son of Parnak. Tribe, Issachar. Peltiel, son of Azan. Tribe, Asher. Ahihud, son of Shelomi. Tribe, Naphtali. Pedahel, son of Ammihud. These are the men the Lord has appointed to divide the grants of land in Canaan among the Israelites. I don't know if you know this, but the most popular name in Old Testament times amongst the Jewish community was Abijah, which means the Lord our Father. Quiz question as we approach Numbers 35. I don't know how it's going to word it in this one, but who is the avenger of death? Towns for the Levites. This is awesome. When Israel was camped beside the Jordan on the plains of Moab across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, "Command the people of Israel to give to the Levites from their property certain towns to live in, along with the surrounding pasture lands. These towns will be for the Levites to live in, and the surrounding lands will provide pasture for their cattle, flocks, and other livestock. The pasture land assigned to the Levites around these towns will extend 1,500 feet from the town walls in every direction. Measure off 3,000 feet outside the town walls in every direction, east, south, west, north, with the town at the center. This area will serve as the larger pasture lands for the towns. 6 of the towns you give the Levites will be cities of refuge, where a person who has accidentally killed someone can flee for safety. In addition, give them 42 other towns. That sort of good works, charity stuff, always been part of the life of the church, looking after the vulnerable. Quite a few charities represented in this gang. In all, 48 towns with the surrounding pasture land will be given to the Levites. Church is about justice. Not primarily, it's about Jesus and sinners being saved, but what comes with that is justice for the world. In all, 48 towns with surrounding pasture land will be given to the Levites. These towns will come from the property of the people of Israel. The larger tribes will give more towns to the Levites, while the smaller tribes will give fewer. Each tribe will give property in proportion to the size of its land. Church even giving their own property to look after the vulnerable. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, designate cities of refuge to which people can flee if they have killed someone accidentally. These cities will be places of protection from a dead person's relatives who want to avenge the death. The slayer must not be put to death before being tried by the community. Designate 6 cities of refuge for yourselves, 3 on the east side of the Jordan River and 3 on the west side of the land of Canaan. These cities are for the protection of Israelites, foreigners living among you, and traveling merchants. Anyone who accidentally kills someone may flee there for safety." Justice via the gospel, not social justice. The source is important. Yeah, gospel justice. Christians are to care for the land because it's Jesus' land. We're to love people because they're made in the image of the Lord. But if someone strikes and kills another person with a piece of iron, it is murder, and the murderer must be executed. Or if someone with a stone in his hand strikes and kills another person, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. Or if someone strikes and kills another person with a wooden object, it is murder, and the murderer must be put to death. The victim's nearest relative is responsible for putting the murderer to death. Where they meet, the avenger must put the murderer to death. So if someone hates another person and waits in ambush, then pushes him or throws something at him and he dies, it is murder. Or if someone hates another person and hits him with a fist and he dies, it is murder. In such cases, the avenger must put the murderer to death when they meet. But suppose someone pushes another person without having shown previous hostility, or throws something that unintentionally hits another person, or accidentally drops a huge stone on someone, like you do, though they were not enemies, and the person dies. If this should happen, the community must follow these regulations in making a judgment between the slayer and the avenger and the victim's nearest relative. The community must protect the slayer from the avenger and must escort the slayer back to live in the city of refuge to which he fled. There must remain until the death of the high priest. There they must remain, until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the sacred oil. But if the slayer ever leaves the limits of the city of refuge, and the avenger finds him outside the city and kills him, it will not be considered murder. The slayer should have stayed inside the city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer may return to his own property. These are legal requirements for you to observe generation to generation wherever you may live. God cares about justice. All murderers must be put to death, but only if evidence is presented by more than one witness. No one may be put to death on the testimony of only one witness. Also, you must never accept a ransom payment for the life of someone judged guilty of murder and subject to execution. Murderers must always be put to death. And never accept the ransom payment from someone who has fled to a city of refuge, allowing a slayer to return to his property before his death of the high priest, the death. This will ensure that the land where you live will not be polluted, for murder pollutes the land. And no sacrifice except the execution of the murderer can purify the land from the murder. You must not defile the land where you live, for I live there myself. I am the Lord who lives among the people of Israel. Park End admin, please could we have the King James Version of verse 34? Please, if possible. And we end on a belting note. Numbers 36. It's a halfway point, so take 30 seconds. Then the nations will know that I am the Lord when I am sanctified in your hearts as Lord. Is Darian trying to hijack the admin's post? No, that's not verse 34. That's just another post, which lends into this one. So we've been tracing the daughters of Zelophehad. I love them. That's why I tried to memorize their names so often. Yes. They started off as orphans because their father was judged because he sinned, whatever that means. Then they were like, we want a part of the new heavens and earth. Give us a slice of land. Then the male tribes are all sort of backing out, not really want to conquer the land, until these descendants of Machir, the daughters of Zelophehad, just stormed in and took what's theirs. All right, let's find out a bit more about them. This is a spicy one because today's culture is like, if you feel something, just do it. Just do it. That is true life. You will be completely fulfilled if you just go with your natural desire. Verse 34, defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell. Yes. Women who inherit property. That is a rubbish subheading for what's happening here. These are women learning how to live in the promised land of heaven and earth. Like proper details about heavenly life. Then the heads of the clans of Gilead, descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph, came to Moses and the family leaders of Israel with a petition. So here come the girls in public. They said, Sir, the Lord instructed you to divide the land by sacred lot among the people of Israel. You were told by the Lord to give the grant of land owned by our brother Zelophehad to his daughters. But if they marry men from another tribe, their grants of land will go with them to the tribe into which they marry. In this way, the total area of our tribal land will be reduced. Then, when the year of Jubilee comes, their portion of land will be added to that of the new tribe, causing it to be lost forever to our ancestral tribe. Can I do a Bible Bite video on these women, please? I don't know what Bible Bite means, but if you mean make a little video about the daughters of Zelophehad, we'll do it. Although I've referenced them on and off for the last 3 days. So Moses gave the Israelites this command from the Lord. The claim of the men of the tribe of Joseph is legitimate. This is what the Lord commands concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. Let them marry anyone they like as long as it is within their own ancestral tribe. None of the territorial land may pass from tribe to tribe, for all the land given to each tribe must remain within the tribe to which it was first allotted. The daughters throughout the tribe of Israel who are in line to inherit property must marry within their tribe, so that all the Israelites will keep their ancestral property. No grant of land may pass from one tribe to another. Each tribe of Israel must keep its allotted portion of land. The daughters of Zelophehad did as the Lord commanded Moses. Mahlah, Tisra, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah all married cousins on their father's side. They married into the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. Thus, their inheritance of land remained within their ancestral tribe. These are the commands and regulations that the Lord gave to the people of Israel through Moses while they were camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. What just happened? The daughters of Zelophehad are so fixed on maintaining and keeping their heavenly land within their family, they will not even marry someone who is an Israelite but is in another tribe, because their portion of heaven will end up one day with them over there. So a whole new law comes in that they're not allowed to marry. I'm not dealing with pagans here, like non-Christian people. They're not even allowed to marry someone from another tribe within the Church of God. Such is their devotion to want to keep their portion and inheritance. Such is their devotion to heaven on earth. They say no to men that they might fancy from the tribe of Zebulun or something. Isn't that containing sexual desires within the life of the church, which is what they're supposed to be for anyway? I mean, imagine telling, respect the ladies' parish, imagine telling the daughters of Zelophehad that not only were you planning to marry a tribe from somewhere else, but like one of the Canaanites who worship Chemosh or Molech or something. They would probably chop your head off. And that's Numbers. Love it. Love it. And the sad news is we're now into the last book of Moses. Moses. So a journey that should have taken 11 days has taken more than 14,600 days. All right, that's how Deuteronomy sets out. They probably shouldn't even have had spies because Jesus could have gone in for them. Don't cry, Owen. I'm not far off. I might get someone else to read the books after Moses and just pack it all in. Deuteronomy chapter 1. Here we go. Last book of Moses. Let's eke it out for a month. I love it, Jonty. Introduction to Moses' first address. What a gripping subtitle in the NLT. These are the words that Moses spoke to all the people of Israel while they were in the wilderness east of the Jordan River. They were camped in the Jordan Valley near Suf, between Paran on the one side and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab on the other. All right, they are peering into heaven. What's Moses going to say? This is going to be good. Normally, it takes only 11 days to travel from Mount Sinai to Kadesh Barnea, going by the way of Mount Seir. But 40 years after the Israelites left Egypt, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses addressed the people of Israel, telling them everything the Lord had commanded him to say. This took place after he had defeated King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, and Edrei had defeated king of Og in Bashan, who ruled in Ashtaroth. While the Israelites were in the land of Moab, east of the Jordan River, Moses carefully explained the Lord's instructions as follows. When we were at Mount Sinai, the Lord our God said to us, "You have stayed at this mountain long enough. It is time to break camp and move on. Go to the hill country of the Amorites and to all the neighboring regions, the Jordan Valley, the hill country, the western foothills, the Negev, and the coastal plain. Go to the land of the Canaanites and to Lebanon and all the way to the great Euphrates River. Look, I am giving you all this land to you. Go and occupy it, for it is the land the Lord swore to give to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to all their descendants." And remember, that Lord was Jesus, who was proper fighting them, sometimes physically, to get the message through. Genesis 48, isn't it? Or 45. That angel that I wrestled with, the Lord God, promised me. Moses continued, "At the time I told you, you are too great a burden for me to carry all by myself. The Lord your God has increased your population, making you as numerous as the stars." Darren Gilchrist, you have stayed at the mountain long enough. Great counsel for those going through conviction, but yet not clinging on to Christ. Yes. Get to Jesus. The Lord your God has increased your population, making you as numerous as the stars. And may the Lord, the God of your ancestors, multiply you 1,000 times more and bless you as he has promised. But you are such a heavy load to carry, said Moses. How can I deal with all of your problems and bickering? Are there church leaders in this group? Yes, there are. How do I deal with people's bickering and problems? Choose some well-respected man from each tribe who are known for their wisdom and understanding, and I will appoint them as your leaders. Then you responded, your plan is a good one. So I took the wise and respected man you had selected from your tribes and appointed them to serve as judges and officials over you. Some were responsible for 1,000 people, some for 100, some for 50, and some for 10. At that time, I instructed the judges, you must hear the cases of your fellow Israelites and the foreigners living among you. Be perfectly fair in your decisions and impartial in your judgments. Hear the cases of those who are poor as well as those who are rich. Don't be afraid of anyone's anger, for the decision you make is God's decision. Bring me any cases that are too difficult for you, and I will handle them. At that time, I gave you instructions about everything you were to do. Bear all this in mind. Then, just as the Lord our God commanded us, we left Mount Sinai and traveled through the great and terrifying wilderness, as you yourselves remember, and headed toward the hill country of the Amorites. When we arrived at Kadesh Barnea, I said to you, you have now reached the hill country of the Amorites that the Lord our God is giving us. Look, he has placed the land in front of you. Go and occupy it as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, has promised you. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. But you all came to me and said, first, let's send out scouts to explore the land for us. I don't think they needed to do that. I think that's their first problem. They will advise us on the best route to take and which towns we should enter. This seemed like a good idea to me, so I chose 12 scouts, one from each of your tribes. They headed out for the hill country and came to the valley of Escol, where they got the grapes, and explored it. They picked some of its fruit and brought it back to us, and they reported the land the Lord our God has given us is indeed a good land. But you rebelled against the command of the Lord your God and refused to go in. You complained in your tents and said, the Lord must hate us. That is why he brought us here from Egypt to hand us over to the Amorites to be slaughtered. Where can we go? Our brothers have demoralized us with their report. They tell us the people of the land are taller and more powerful than we, and their towns are large, with walls rising high into the sky. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. But I said to you, don't be shocked or afraid of them. The Lord your God is going ahead of you. He will fight for you, just as you saw him do in Egypt. And you saw how the Lord your God cared for you all the way as you traveled through the wilderness, just as the father cares for his child. Now he has brought you to this place. But even after all he did, you refused to trust the Lord your God, who goes before you, looking for the best places to camp, guiding you with a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. When the Lord heard you complaining, he became very angry. So he solemnly swore, none of you from this wicked generation will live to see the good land I swore to give your ancestors, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He will see the land because he has followed the Lord completely. I will give to him and his descendants some of the very land he explored during his scouting mission. But the Lord was also angry with me because of you. He said to me, Moses, not even you will enter the promised land. Instead, your assistant Joshua, son of Nun, will lead the people into the land. Encourage him, for he will lead Israel as they take possession of it. Obviously, Yeshua will. I will give the land to your little ones, your innocent children. You were afraid that they would be captured, but they will be the ones who occupy it. As for you, turn around now and go on back through the wilderness toward the Red Sea. Then you confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. We will go into the land and fight for it, as the Lord God has commanded us. So your men strapped on their weapons, thinking it would be easy to attack the hill country. Darren Gilchrist. Real preaching sometimes results in complaining church members. I've done it myself. And Moses reminds them of God's past kindness. But the Lord told me to tell you, do not attack, for I am not with you. If you go ahead on your own, you will be crushed by your enemies. This is what I told you, but you would not listen. Instead, you again rebelled against the Lord's command and arrogantly went into the hill country to fight. But the Amorites who lived there came out against you like a swarm of bees. They chased and battered you all the way from Seir to Hormah. Then you returned and wept before the Lord, but he refused to listen. So you stayed there. Rolling back up here because there's a passage in Deuteronomy 1 that we just read where Moses's giant problem was a pastoral one. And it's that passage and one towards the end of Deuteronomy which the New Testament quotes a lot, like when it says in places like Hebrews, I will never leave you or forsake you. I am with you. Be strong and courageous. And what's really interesting is it then goes on to quote Moses from Deuteronomy 1 and at the end of Deuteronomy. And Moses, who is equipping the church to go into the land and literally fight actual giants, in order to fire them up to do that, he talks about a giant in his life that the Lord had helped him conquer, which was pastoral problems. There was too many. And if you remember back in Exodus, the Lord sent Jethro, his father-in-law, to come up with the idea, or just get little small group leaders. And then the Lord provided, and there's probably about 3 million people here, one leader per every one, where was it in this version? 1 over 1,000, some for over 100, some for over 50, and some for even 10. The Lord provided leaders from within the church to even look after 1 over 10 people. Now, 3 million divided by that much, that's a lot of church leaders that the Lord provided. It's just interesting that actually internal stressful burdens are the very giants which the Lord helped Moses conquer. And in the whole New Testament, when it just quotes, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, which is coming up in a few chapters, that's what's gone on. I can get you through even your mental burdens each day. I just love Deuteronomy 1. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 2. Let's remind everybody what heaven on earth is like. Remembering Israel's wanderings. Then we turned around and headed back across the wilderness towards the Red Sea, just as the Lord had instructed me, and we wandered around in the region of Mount Seir for a long time. Then, at last, the Lord said to me, You have been wandering around this hill country long enough. Turn to the north. Give these orders to the people. You will pass through the country belonging to your relatives, the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. The Edomites will feel threatened, so be careful. Do not bother them, for I've given them all the hill country around Mount Seir as their property, and I will not give you even 1 square foot of their land. If you need food to eat or water to drink, pay them for it. For the Lord your God has blessed you in everything you have done. He has watched your every step through this great wilderness. During these 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. So we bypass the territory of our relatives. Who needs Edom's land, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. The descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. We avoided the road to the Araba Valley that comes up from Elath to Ezion-Geber. Then, as we turned north along the desert route through Moab, the Lord warned us, Do not bother the Moabites, they are descendants of Lot, or start a war with them. I have given them Ar as their property, and I will not give you any of their land. All right. A race of giants called the Imites had once lived in the area of Ar. They were as strong and numerous and as tall as the Anakites, another race of giants. Both the Emites and Anakites are also known as Rephaites, Rephaites, though the Moabites call them Emites. In earlier times, the Horites had lived in Seir, but they were driven out and displaced by the descendants of Esau, just as Israel drove out the people of Canaan when the Lord gave Israel their land. Moses continued, "Then the Lord said to us, 'Get moving, cross the Zered brook.' So we crossed the brook. 38 years passed from the time that we left Kadesh Barnea until we finally crossed the Zered brook. By then, all the men old enough to fight in the battle had died in the wilderness, as the Lord had vowed would happen. The Lord struck them down until they had all been eliminated from the community. When all the men of fighting age had died, the Lord said to me, 'Today you will cross the border of Moab at Ar, and enter the land of the Ammonites, the descendants of Lot. But do not bother them or start a war with them. I've given the land of Ammon to them as their property. I will not give you any of their land.' That area was once considered the land of the Rephaites who lived there, though the Amorites call them Zamzumites. They were also as strong and numerous as tall as the Anakites, but the Lord destroyed them all so the Ammonites could occupy their land. He had done the same for the descendants of Esau. When I was little young, I always thought this was most unfair." Yeah. "They were also as strong and numerous as the tall of Anakites, but the Lord destroyed them so the Ammonites could occupy their land. He had done the same for the descendants of Esau who lived in Seir, for he destroyed the Horites and they could settle there for their place." In their place. The same. The descendants of Esau lived there to this day. A similar thing happened when the Caphtorites from Crete invaded and destroyed the Avites, who had lived in villages in the area of Gaza. Moses continued, "Then the Lord said, 'Now get moving, cross on the Arnon Gorge. Look, I will hand over to you Sihon, the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and I will give you his land. Attack him and begin to occupy his land. Beginning today, I will make people throughout the earth terrified because of you. When they hear reports about you, they will tremble with dread and fear.'" Moses continued, "From the wilderness of Kedemoth I send ambassadors to King Sihon of Heshbon with the proposal of peace. Let us travel through your land, please. We will stay on the main road and won't turn off to the fields on either side. Sell us food to eat and water to drink, and we will pay for it. All we want is permission to pass through your land. The descendants of Esau who live in Seir allowed us to go through their country, and so did the Moabites who live in Ar. Let us pass through until we cross the Jordan into the land the Lord is giving us." But King Sihon of Heshbon refused to allow us to pass through, because the Lord your God made Sihon stubborn and defiant so he could help you defeat him, and now as he has now done. Then Then the Lord said to me, "Look, I have begun to hand King Sihon and his land over to you. Begin now to conquer and occupy his land." Then King Sihon declared war on us and mobilized his forces at Jahaz. But the Lord our God handed him over to us, and we crushed him, his sons, and all his people. We conquered all his towns and completely destroyed everyone, men, women, and children. Not a single person was spared. We took all the livestock as plunder for ourselves, along with anything of value from the towns we ransacked. The Lord our God also helped us conquer Ar-Ur on the edge of the Arnon Gorge, and the town in the gorge and the whole area as far as Gilead. No town had walls too strong for us. However, we avoided the land of the Ammonites all along the Jabbok River and the towns in the hill country, all the places the Lord God has commanded us to leave alone. Deuteronomy chapter 3. There are no giants too big for Jesus. It's interesting. A lot of these giant tribes that Moses is just knocking down left, right, and center. I don't think Moses gets enough press for this. I love Og, king of Bashan. But David kills one, Goliath, and everybody talks about it for the next 2,000 years, I guess. That's what happens when you write your own sort of press, isn't it? But Moses, I mean, I've lost count of the giants. Watch this one. Next, we turned and headed for the land of Bashan, where King Og and his entire army attacked us at Edrei. But the Lord told me, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have given you victory over Og and his entire army, and I will give you all his land. Treat him as though you treated King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon." So the Lord our God handed King Og and all his people over to us, and we killed them all. Not a single person survived. We conquered all 60 of his towns, the entire Argob region, and his kingdom of Bashan. Bashan. Not a single town escaped our conquest. These towns were all fortified with high walls and barred gates. We also took many unwalled villages at the same time. We completely destroyed the kingdom of Bashan, just as we had destroyed King Sihon of Heshbon. We destroyed all the people in every town we conquered, men, women, and children alike. But we kept all the livestock for ourselves and took plunder from all the towns. So we took the land of the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, all the way from the Arnon Gorge to Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is called Sirion by the Sidonians, and the Amorites call it Senir. We had now conquered all the cities on the plateau and all of Gilead and Bashan, as far as the towns of Salakah and Edrei, which were part of Og's kingdom of Bashan. King Og of Bashan was the last survivor of the giant Rephaites. And God handed them into their hands. Sounds so effortless. Yeah. His bread was made of iron, and no, his bread wasn't made of iron. That would be crazy. Sue Roberts, can't wait for the book of Samuel and the men of Jabesh Gilead. Yep. Sorry, his bed was made of iron and was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. It can still be seen in the Ammonite city of Reba. So this dude, he's a big lump, but they conquered it. Moses is like, yeah, that was easy. What was tough for me was my pastoral problems. Verse 12. When we took possession of this land, I gave to the tribes of Reuben and Gad the territory beyond along the Arnon Gorge, plus half of the hill country of Gilead with its towns. Then I gave the rest of Gilead and all of Bashan, Og's former kingdom, to the half tribe of Manasseh. This entire Argob region of Bashan used to be known as the land of the Rephaites. Jair, the leader of the tribe of Manasseh, conquered the whole Argob region in Bashan, all the way to the border of the Gershurites and the Maacathites. Jair renamed this town region after himself, calling it the towns of Jair, as it is still known today. I gave Gilead to the clan of Machir, but I also gave part of Gilead to the tribes of Reuben and Gad. The area I gave them extended from the middle of the Arnon Gorge in the south of the Jabbok River on the Ammonite frontier. They also received the Jordan Valley all the way from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea, with the Jordan River serving as the western boundary to the east, where the slopes of Pisgah. These chapters are no small things as we recap the giants that the Lord has conquered for church and still does today. At the time I gave this command to the tribes that would live east of the Jordan. Although the Lord your God has given you this land as your property, all your fighting men must cross the Jordan ahead of your Israelite relatives, armed and ready to assist them. Your wives, children, and numerous livestock, however, may stay behind in the towns I have given you. When the Lord has given security to the rest of the Israelites, as he has to you, and when they occupy the land of the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan River, then you may all return here to the land I have given you. We just read that, didn't we, at the end of Numbers. At the time I gave Yeshua this charge, you have seen for yourself everything the Lord your God has done to these two kings. He will do the same to all the kingdoms on the west side of the Jordan. Do not be afraid of the nations there, for the Lord your God will fight for you. At the time I pleaded with the Lord and said, O sovereign Lord, you have only begun to show your greatness and the strength of your hand to me, your servant. Is there any God in heaven or on earth who can perform such great and mighty deeds as you? Please let me cross the Jordan to see the wonderful land on the other side, the beautiful hill country and the Lebanon mountains. But the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he would not listen to me. That's enough, he declared. Speak of it no more, but go up to Pisgah Peak, look over the land in every direction, and take a good look, but you may not cross the Jordan River. Instead, commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will lead the people across the Jordan. He will give them the land you now see before you as their possession. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. It is 10 o'clock. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Biggest giant we face? Giant self, says Darren Gilchrist. Ladies and gentlemen, we have uploaded Psalm 25, part 2. And God willing, this will be uploaded soon. And we will gather back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow to hear Moses preach and fire up the church to go and take heaven on earth. I'm sure it will go fine with no problems at all, because that's church. We always get things right first time. Let's find out tomorrow. Until then, glory to Jesus on high.